Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking a few moments to review this video, which is going to give you some tips on writing your introduction, your body, and the conclusion of your literary analysis essay. So this week, you can see in the Google Classroom, you will be writing the Embedded Assessment Unit 1, EA1, Literary Analysis Essay on the short story Martha, Martha. And there are two files here that can help you get started. One is the assignment description, which also includes an outline. And the other is the slideshow that I'm going to review with you in just a moment on writing introductions and conclusions for an effective essay. So take a look, at the assignment description. Just as a review, your assignment is to write a literary analysis essay in which you analyze how Zadie Smith uses literary devices or other elements to express a theme about coping with emotional turmoil in the short story Martha, Martha. So there are several different steps to the writing process. We begin by planning and pre-writing. We did some of that over our past few meetings when you worked with a collaborative group and then on your own to identify evidence of literary devices and themes within the story. So that was a way of pre-writing and planning. And now you're going to read through these. You're going to choose the theme that you're going to write about. You're going to choose 2, 3, or 4 literary devices that you're going to write about in your body paragraphs. And think about whether or not there was a moment in the story when you really understood that the character was communicating this theme or experiencing the overall topic of this theme. And then how did the author use those devices in order to help the reader understand that theme? And so all of this is what you need to think about as you prepare to start drafting. Read through what you need to do to draft. Of course, you will think about your organization, which I'll go over in a moment. Think about what is your claim going to be. So your thesis statement in the short story Martha, Martha, Zadie Smith uses blank, blank, and blank to communicate the theme that, and then the theme. So the blanks would be, of course, the literary devices you choose to talk about in your essay. And then, of course, what text evidence do you need? And hopefully in your planning stages and in the document that you collaborated on last week, you came up with plenty of evidence that communicates that theme to the reader. At the end of the week, just a heads up, you'll need to have a mostly complete rough draft to bring to your synchronous session. So if you meet on Thursday or Friday, you should have that available and ready to go so that you can share it with a partner and get some feedback. So a partner will look at your strengths and then look at areas of improvement and help you strengthen your paper before you turn it in. So then you will go through and edit for punctuation, capitalization, spelling, content, areas where you need more information or evidence, or maybe something isn't working and you need to take it out. And then you will finalize it and make sure you get it turned in by Sunday. So the scoring guide is here. It is a big grade. This is a very important assignment. Your grade on this assignment can make other grades go away. So just keep that in mind. If you do well on this essay, hopefully we can remove some of those lower scores on your practice work and give you the higher score for this essay. So reading, can you pull out the evidence that explains the theme to understand the story? Writing, do you write in an organized manner? Do you select evidence and explain that evidence sufficiently and strategically? And is it logical and organized and well written? And then, of course, your use of language. So is it in an academic formal tone? And do you use appropriate grammar, spelling, punctuation, capitalization? All right, so these are the requirements that you will be graded on. Now, the last page in this document is where we're going to focus just for a moment. It is an outline. So if you need a part by part, step by step process for organizing your essay. This outline should help you. And we are going to go over the parts of the essay, so like the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So remember, you've already written literary analysis paragraphs. You've been doing that several times as we've read different stories. So the body of the essay really is 3 analysis paragraphs. One on a different device than the next, and then the next. So a literary device that you explain in this paragraph, a new literary device you explain in the next paragraph, and then hopefully you have a third body paragraph. So there are 3 really important components to an introduction. So let's take a look at introductions. So we're going to take a look at this slideshow that's also in the Google Classroom that talks about the analytical essay and an introduction and a conclusion. So remember that an essay, just like your paragraph, is kind of hourglass shaped. You start off broad, universal, then you give a little bit of background on the story or your subject, and then you narrow down into the specifics and you give specific details and evidence from a story with some explanations. Then you broaden out again and you bring it back outside of the writing to the reader, and you make it relevant to the outside world and the reader. Okay? So looking at the introduction, so introductions serve many purposes. Most importantly, they set the reader up for what's coming by creating interest, grabbing their interest, introducing your topic, giving them context and background information that's going to help them understand when you get to the specific evidence. Identifying the main idea that's going to run throughout the entirety of your essay, and then it's going to give them kind of a roadmap, a preview of the main points or the main ideas that you're going to hit as you move forward. So the first thing you want to do is hook your reader. You need to get them interested so that they want to continue to read. Okay? There are lots of ways you can do this. You can use imagery. You can use a metaphor that likens something to something else. You can provide an anecdote or a little story. Maybe you begin by talking about the theme, the emotional turmoil, the topic, and you say something about, how individuals often deal with emotional turmoil, such as the characters in the story. You can surprise the reader with an interesting or a surprising or shocking fact or a statement, maybe something about a topic within the story, something about emotional turmoil or people who suffer from breakups or whatever it is that's related to what you're going to talk about. Remember, we're starting off broad, general in nature. This isn't where your evidence goes. This isn't where quotes from the story begin. All right, so one method for starting off your introduction could be to use what we call the QQAS method. And you don't use them all. You choose one, but it's 4 different strategies that you could use to begin an introduction. You can use a question. I know that you know how to use rhetorical questions. They are overused. So try to avoid it if you can. Imagine, if you will, I have 100 freshmen, and do I really want to read 100 essays that begin, have you ever felt emotionally upset? Or have you ever had a breakup? They can be overused. And so be careful with the rhetorical question. But it can help. It can hook your reader because it automatically makes your reader think of an answer, which is step 2 to keeping going. A quote. So you could quote someone outside the story. If there was a poignant or thoughtful quote from within the story, you could use it as long as you link it to the background and you're not using it as your evidence. An anecdote. It's like a little story. You could say something about, oftentimes when young people break up from a relationship, they find it hard to meet new people. Or, just you could give an anecdote of yourself remembering a time when a divorce happened in your family. Be careful with first person. You want to avoid it as much as possible in this type of essay. So you might say things like, instead of saying, I remember, you could say, often when children think about their past, their parents getting divorced, when they go to look at a new home, they feel sadness instead of happiness, right? So instead of saying I, say children or students or people, okay? So that's what an anecdote is. Or you can use a statement of intrigue. So a shocking or interesting sentence, something like, after 9/11, 75% of marriages failed. I made that up. Don't use that. But, something. You could say something about, immigrants finding it hard to find their place in a new city. I think that's true with Martha, and that might be a statement of intrigue. So that's the QQAS method for starting off an essay. All right, so be careful again with rhetorical questions and detached quotes. Don't just put in a quote and not say who said it or how it links to your topic. It has to be connected to your words and not just sitting there all by itself. So you don't want to say, I have a dream that one day, that was Martin Luther King. You need to say that he said it. And then you need to say why it connects to your essay. So don't just drop a quote in there and leave it unconnected. All right. Couple things that happen in ninth grade. We learn to drop some phrases from our writing. When we learn to write, we learn to use formulas. Just like we use formulas in math, teachers have taught you to use formulas in your writing. And now is when we begin to internalize more sophisticated methods and drop some of those formulas off. Okay, so I want you to avoid saying in this essay, I will. You don't need to say that because I already know you're going to do what you're going to do. I've asked you to do it. So you don't need to tell me that you're going to do it. Just do it. Okay. Don't tell me what you're going to talk about. Just talk about it. So don't say I'm going to talk about. Okay. Try not to offend your reader. So I have read essays that say, if you didn't like this story, then you're stupid. Honestly, students have written those things. So don't offend your reader, right? And don't make assumptions about your reader. Don't assume that they know why Martha's having emotional turmoil. Give them a little bit of information. Now, you don't need to give me the whole story. I've read the story. So don't retell the story. Avoid that. But do give me enough information to understand why what you're writing has to do with the story. Okay. All right. So after you hook your reader and you have a statement, an anecdote, a quote, a question, then you need to give some background information that's going to help me understand what's coming in the next part of your essay. So ask yourself, what does my reader need to know about my topic in order to understand my claim? Well, I'm going to need to know the name of the story. I'm going to need to know the name of the author and maybe a little bit about the characters. So if you're just going to tell me there's this character named Martha and she has a breakdown, that's not enough. So you're going to have to tell me a little bit about who is this Martha and why is she having a breakdown. Okay. Maybe give me a little bit of interesting history or general information. Maybe I need to know that it happened during 9/11. Maybe I don't. Maybe I need to know that this happened in Massachusetts, where there are mostly white people and not many immigrants. Maybe I need to know something about how Martha feels about the man who's living in that house because it was after 9/11. So just think about what is the information I need. Maybe think about experiences that your audience might have that mirror your own or your topics. Do we know about breakups and divorce? And do we know about 9/11? So maybe I don't know about those things and you need to tell me. And then you're going to create a bridge to your claim. Now, that one probably is harder to understand. basically what I mean is maybe you've written 2 sentences to tell me that Martha is an immigrant who came from London after a breakup with her significant other and encountered a family that she dreamed she would someday have, and now she's upset. If this is going to then go into your claim, and your claim, your thesis, is going to say that in this short story, the author uses certain literary devices, setting, conflict, character, to express the theme that sometimes people run away from their emotional turmoil. Maybe you need to put a sentence in between those that tells me that Martha, in response to her breakup, is running away to a new country and a new life, and she's changing her dreams. So just make sure that whatever background information you've given me then transitions well into the claim, okay, and has something to do with the theme that you're going to address in your claim. All right, so the claim. This is the main idea of your essay. So your thesis statement, which we're also calling a claim. Don't forget to tag it. By tag, I mean include the title, author, and genre to let your author or your reader know what you're talking about. It's the main idea. Every single thing you say in that essay has to have something to do with this one sentence, this claim, okay? So state this thesis about your topic as usually the last sentence of your introduction, okay? It provides a roadmap. So if you say that Zadie Smith uses setting, character, and conflict to express the theme, then your body paragraphs should follow that order: setting, character, conflict, whatever I just said. So whatever order your claim is in, put that as your order for your body paragraphs, and that will help your reader feel like they're following this roadmap and they know where they're going. All right, so be careful. Your evidence doesn't go in the introduction. It goes in the body. So this is not the place to get super specific. Also, you don't need to say I believe or I think. That actually weakens your argument, because as soon as you say, I think the author does, I think the author uses setting to show blank, what you've done is you've put yourself in contrast to your reader. I think, but you're not me, so maybe you have a different idea. It weakens your argument. Don't say that. Put it out there as truth. The author uses blank to communicate the theme. State it as a fact, because you're going to prove that fact with your evidence. And remember, in literary analysis, as long as you can prove it, you're allowed to have your feelings and your thoughts about that story. All right. We're going to come back to conclusions. So we're almost done here. Remember, we've done body paragraphs. Now, if you need to go back to something that tells you what goes in the analytical paragraph, there is a link there, and it will link you to an analytical paragraph that tells you what you need as far as evidence and commentary. All right, so remember that for every piece of evidence you have, you need commentary, which helps you explain how that piece of evidence links to your claim. Remember, your evidence is proving that there is a message about emotional turmoil the author's proving or talking about. So, in all likelihood, you'll have 3 body paragraphs. Notice the organization in the sample. So, literary device number 1 would be body paragraph number 1. Literary device number 2 would be body paragraph number 2, and so on. Now, conclusions. Introductions and conclusions are often the hardest part of an essay to write. Students will say to me, first, I don't know how to begin. Hopefully, we've conquered that. Then they'll tell me, I don't know how to end. It is difficult, but just remember, the conclusion has a purpose. And as long as you understand the purpose, we can get it done. So the purpose of your conclusion is to revisit your claim So remind your reader of what you were trying to prove. Tell them how you proved it in a paraphrased, summarized way, and then relate that or connect that to them, to their life or the world outside. So let's take a look at writing a conclusion, and then you're going to get started with your writing. All right, so the purpose: summarizing, motivating or inspiring, convincing, challenging, and making a connection. Most importantly, this last bullet, making a connection to your reader. So you want your reader to feel fulfilled and satisfied at the end of your essay. So there's 3 parts to the conclusion. The literal. So you're going to tell them what you said. You're going to paraphrase your claim. So you're going to tell them what you were aiming to prove. Okay? Interpretive. So what it means. So how did you prove it? What does it mean? What is this theme that you were talking about? And then universal. So why does it matter to the reader or to the world at large? Okay, so let's look at those. So in the literal, you're going to tell them what you told them, but you're going to paraphrase, right? Summarize your main points by paraphrasing your claim, okay? Loop back to your introduction. If you started with an anecdote, go back to that anecdote and remind your reader what you were saying. If you said something about how children of divorce, when they're looking for a new place to live, often feel sadness instead of happiness, go back to that idea in your conclusion, right? And say, just as Martha was feeling sadness when looking for a new home, often readers have experienced the same thing and feel that same sadness, right? So kind of review whatever it was you started with in your introduction. If you used a rhetorical question in your introduction, answer it in your conclusion. Bring closure to that, okay? Remember, this is about the main points. It's not about adding new evidence. This isn't the place to try something new or, oh yeah, I forgot to add this piece of evidence, so put it here. No new evidence in the conclusion. All right. The interpretive part of the conclusion, so maybe your 3rd or 4th sentence, is really just about how do these main points work together to prove what I was trying to prove. So for example, if I'm talking setting, conflict, and character, I might say that, post 9/11, when someone was already feeling so much trauma, when they had conflict with other characters or within themselves, they find themselves, I don't know, and then whatever the theme is, running away from their trauma or overflowing with emotional that they can no longer control, or whatever it was that you said. So talk about how those main points, those literary devices, work together to create this overall message. Okay? And then universal. You got to tell your reader why they just spent the time to read your paper. Why was it important to them? Well, and usually, it's not so important that they know this story, but maybe it's important that they understand that they're not alone in the world if they don't know how to deal with trauma or if they run away from emotional trauma. So make a connection, text to reader or text to world. So just as children of divorce find it hard to find a new home and they feel sadness instead of happiness, so too might the reader someday need to know that this could happen to them. So somehow link it outside the paper. Once you've done that, just like I can't click on anymore, then you have finished. All right, you guys, so that is it for this quick overview. Everything is linked in this outline for you. So these slideshows are there and they are linked and they're there to help you. I am going to be here to help you, but I know that you can tackle this and be successful. All right, so have fun, get started, and let me know if you need help. See you soon.